everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which is another way to say Carpe Diem. And from time to time, I'll issue myself a Take the Doughnut challenge. If there's something that I want to go after, if there's an opportunity that I want to seize, I'll make it official. I'll say that I'm doing it. Maybe I'll make a video about it. Well, okay, so EEKtober has been kind of a long-running thing for me. A couple of years ago, I did my original EEKtober series. I covered 31 days of scary movies. I covered a movie a day. I've actually been re-releasing that series this year because the intro got a little bit messed up, and so I had to go back and re-release it on October days that actually corresponded with the day that they were supposed to come out. But what I've actually been doing this year for EEKtober is a different challenge, and I wanted to do a video about that today that I've been kind of excited about. So I don't even know if I should admit this, but look, October has been kind of a quiet month for me. I've all my presentations have been virtual, and I didn't have to travel anywhere. I wasn't going to travel anywhere. So I decided to try a challenge that, frankly, I really never thought I would achieve, or would even try to achieve. Here's the thing, every October, I watch as many scary movies as I can. And I've gotten up to some pretty high numbers in the past, but this year I was like, could I watch 100? I know, say what you will. I had a lot of movie watching time on my hands this month. And that was kind of where I needed to be very honest with you, for myself for this month. But in the process, I got to watch 100 horror movies. And so I want to be really clear about what this list is, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to just touch upon my initial reaction to each of those movies really quickly in this video. This is not a deep dive video. So if you want deep dives, you probably want to check out my original EEKtober series where I did actually 33 movies in depth. I covered them with full recaps and my beyond first impressions. But this time, knowing that I was going to do 100 movies, and I consider myself a horror fanatic, but I know there are people out there who are way more educated than I am. And there still are people out there who are way more educated about this than I am. But I thought I need to be able to speak in a way that's a little bit more knowledgeable about the sort of the breadth of horror movies out there. So for EEKtober this year, for the 100 movies, this list is a combination of educating myself and rewatching some films that I like. This is not a list of 100 best horror movies. It is not a list of 100 favorite horror movies. It is a list of the 100 movies that I watched this EEKtober. And as part of that, I actually started the list by delving into some subgenres that I've been previously a little intimidated by. Stuff that has the word like extreme in it, or I hadn't really delved into splatter before, stuff like that, torture. I haven't gone too far into that category in the past. So I started there because I was like, okay, I need to kind of know what I'm talking about here. I also watched quite a lot of foreign language films or non-English films, a lot of films with subtitles. And what an interesting adventure that was as well, to see, different countries and what they've got going on. There were some really interesting finds there for me. And then as we get further into the movie, you'll see towards the end, I did sort of stack it with some home invasion movies because that is my favorite subgenre. That is her home invasion and survival are sort of my favorite subgenres, and that space around it is what I gravitate towards. But you will see a very wide representation of subgenres on this list here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, hopefully along the way, I've been putting up some images of the list of movies that I'll be covering. Again, I'm going to be going through these pretty quickly, just first impressions. We don't want to be here all day. Maybe it'll help you find some movies that you want to explore and discover. I've put the subgenre with them and the year they came out and the countries that they were from, given that I have so many movies that I watched this time around that were not American films. I wanted to put all of that sort of in the just in the images, but also it'll be in the video description so that you can more easily find some videos and some movies that you might want to check out or rewatch. So if you are interested in deeper dives, again, I will also put on the screen here a list of my EEKtober, the first time around series, where I did the deep dives for the 33 different movies. There are some of them that I cover again here because I just like them so much. But I really tried to pare that down as much as possible and expose myself to some new things. So I will say, I don't know that I actually calculated this, but a very large percentage of the movies that are on this list are movies that I had not seen before. At least a third, I'm sure, if not more. So I feel like coming out of this, I've got a lot more to say about horror movies, and I'm excited to get into this. If you're watching this before I get in, first of all, be sure to like and subscribe. Do all of those things. But I would also love your comments on what movies you like or don't like. I would love to know if you discovered anything from this list. I'm going to keep it spoiler free in my summaries. If you have any spoiler filled comments for this video, be sure to put spoiler at the top, put a couple line breaks so that people can get there and not have to be, unpleasantly surprised by information they didn't want. But this has been a really fun challenge, and I can't wait to tell you what I think about these movies. Okay, so like I said at the top, I started these movies with subgenres that I don't normally delve into, stuff that I felt intimidated by. So words like French extremist were a little off-putting to me for a lot of years. So I didn't specifically delve into that category. Although now that I look up what French extremism is, I guess I have seen some of the movies in that category. I had not seen Frontiers. And I've got to say, it wasn't all that much to be worried about. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. What am I missing? For me, it felt like backwoods slasher. Like, okay, another movie that's on this list is Wrong Turn. It really didn't feel all that different to me from something like Wrong Turn. If you can do a movie like that, you could do a movie like this. I don't know. Again, what am I missing? French extremist. Am I supposed to be thinking like this is more artistic? Is it more cerebral? What? I'm sorry. It felt like a backwoods slasher to me. Um, it was fine. It was good. It was just I went in thinking, I don't know if I can handle this. This is going to be so scary. And then I was like, doable. So, Frontiers. It's doable. Hmm. Uh, okay. So this one is in the extreme category. Again, I started with stuff that I was previously intimidated by. I thought this is going to be way too scary for me. Okay, look. SALO isn't for me, but it wasn't scary. It was disturbing. I will tell you this, moving forward, and I'm putting this out there for all of you. Moving forward, if somebody tells me Solo is one of my favorite films, that is grounds for me to exit the conversation. But was I like, I don't know, it definitely didn't have jump scares for me. I think the scariest part of this film, if you're looking for just like traditional scares, is towards the end of the film, like the very end of the film. But ultimately, so buyer beware for this one, okay? Um, this is about the quick plot summary. Four wealthy Italian libertines kidnap and torture teens. It's in four acts. There is a ton of sexual abuse, psychological abuse, physical. It's all of the abuse is in this movie. Um, and I couldn't stop thinking. So this was directed and co-written by Pier Paolo Pasolini, who was murdered like weeks before this movie's release. And I just thought to myself, I can't imagine, like when I think about the legacy I'm gonna leave, I can't imagine wanting to say, like, I left this movie for the world to see. I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there who like it, got through it. I mean, it wasn't scary. It was just a really disturbing watch. So just know that going in. Maybe don't. Ooh, okay. Another French extremist film. Um, and it's a fanaticism film, which I think inherently those can be frustrating in a good way. Um, wow. This If I were, in fact, making a list of 100 favorite horror movies, far less. If I were making a much smaller list of favorite horror movies, I think Martyrs is going to be on it moving forward. This is a movie that has a point to make. There's a thing it wants to say. I cannot tell you what that is because that would be a spoiler. It has, because of my reaction to that, I'm just going to say I was really satisfied by the ending. It's not a satisfying ending, but for me, it was exactly the ending that this movie needed to have. It really made me think. This movie feels like it goes through phases of what it's trying to be. I feel like this was separated into almost different subgenres and its acts. But at the end of the day, there's nothing quite like this movie that I've watched, the way that it all hangs together. And it also has like a level of compassion in it that I thought was weird given the subject matter and where it goes. So I have to say, look, it's a big choice, this movie. Um, Probably not for the faint of heart, but what an interesting, thoughtful, beautiful film with an intention behind it. Try putting this on your list if you haven't seen it. It's a good one. Well, here we are. It's another movie in the extreme category. Again, I shied away from this category altogether prior to this. I don't know. It was doable. I don't know. Extreme as a category. For me, the movies that I've now seen in this category aren't scary per se. They're disturbing. And I think, I suppose, if you're going to have any amount of like pedophilia involved or like that sort of a lens on a movie, probably it just belongs in extreme. There are a lot of people who aren't going to want to watch the movie just because of that, and that's fair. I wasn't fully sure what I was getting into when I when I watched this movie myself. Basically, with this one, an aging porn star signs on to make a movie that he doesn't know anything about. He's not given the details that he is specifically not given the details of it, even when he is asking. And then as he starts to get into the making of the movie, he realizes it's not a movie he wants to be in, and he doesn't have a choice anymore. So it's disturbing. Obviously highly sexual in nature, which, given the log line, I think you could imagine to begin with. But at the end of the day, extreme, I was really bracing myself for extreme. I don't know what I was expecting, but it's definitely not what I got. I mean, I think these are just disturbing, is what it is. So I don't know. It might be my first Serbian film, and it's called a Serbian film. So there you go. What? What a funny movie. Like, not funny. What an interesting movie. I mean, this is the kind of thing, I don't know. Like, I feel like this is a movie only the Japanese could do. There are a few on my list this 100 movies that like are movies only the Japanese could put out. Ichi the Killer is one of them. So the log line of this, a sadomasochistic Yakuza enforcer hopes to encounter a psychotic killer who might be able to inflict the level of pain he desires. Okay. This falls into the splatter category. This falls into the body horror category. And, both of those things intimidated me in the past. Splatter, I just don't know that I had really seen anything officially in the splatter category. Although, when I think about it, there's some more modern stuff that I've seen that you might consider that. Body horror has always been a tricky one for me because I'll say it, like I have a phobia of vomit. And I think body horror very often either has vomit sometimes of things that like bugs and stuff, I don't know. But also there's so much physical pain that it to me seems like at any point somebody could vomit. So it tends to be a really tricky subgenre for me. I've done a little work in this area in terms of like exposure therapy with film and TV. So I'm doing okay with that, which I think was helpful for me going into this challenge and these watches. So watching Ichi the Killer was fine for me. There were definitely a few moments of like torture or body horror. It was really interesting and creative in the way that they did it. And I have to say, towards the end, and I'm not going to spoil this for you, but towards the end, there's a scene that I just thought was so fascinating that they could get the characters to this point where they'd be in this situation. It's up on a rooftop, and it's like, how did we get here? I was so riveted by not only the process, but by that result. Also, if you're interested in a movie that has sort of a martial arts feel, this might be the place to go for you. There's a little bit of that element in this as well. So, a really fun discovery for me. I knew nothing about this category before, but I know a little something about it now. Ooh, you know, if you see somebody making recommendations and grotesque is on their list, they're probably pretty hardcore. Okay, this is in the torture category. It fully belongs in the torture category. I will say this is a movie with a really short run time. It fills the space. It really fills the space. I mean, there are some torture films that don't feel as realistic. There are some that go low budget torture and it's almost meant to be a laugh, something like Terrifier. But this is going for more realism. It doesn't land all the way there, but it's definitely aiming for that aesthetic. Um, it's it's a lot to take in for its short run time. It's brutal. So I'll recognize that straight away. But if that's what you're aiming for, if you're looking for something in the torture category, watch this. What an interesting Australian film this is. It's so funny because this film also is considered part of the torture category. But if you compare this up against a movie like Grotesque, it's not in the conversation of being the same type of movie. To me, this movie felt more like a character study. It felt more like there was big character work being done. It actually, to me, felt a little bit more like a movie like Wolf Creek. Um, and I don't know, it was interesting. It was kind of a breath of fresh air after Grotesque, to be honest with you. And I liked it. I didn't find it super scary, but I did find it really interesting. And I felt like the character study of it all, it felt like it pulled from so many other fun classic horror movies that I enjoy. So worth checking out for sure. And some interesting ideas, some fun character work, and I liked it. Didn't love it, but I liked it. Um, I, this is another movie that I feel like only the Japanese could make. What a funny film. So much creativity in this one, and a ton of so much innuendo in this film. The very idea that they set up of this like mutant race where if they get injured, the injury becomes a weapon, and you get the woman who's fighting them at the center of the story. And when you add to that all of the innuendo that comes with it, like we get some really interesting weapons. Wild, wacky. Not the wackiest feeling Japanese film on my list, believe it or not. I'm maybe going to put House in that category. But look, when you look at the subgenres of this, it's like, what have they left out? It's in the splatter category, action, sci-fi. We've got it all. Okay. If you're just looking to have your world kind of rocked and to finish a movie and be like, what happened to me just now? Consider Tokyo Gore Police. Okay, I have to tell, clearly this is a controversial film. I liked it though. I liked this film so much that I immediately looked up, is there a sequel? And found that there had been intentions to have a sequel. And I think what happened was the film got such bad press that a sequel became not viable or not a moral option to pursue. So I don't know if The Green Inferno as a title really tells you what the movie is about. It is a movie about cannibals in the Amazon, a tribe of cannibals in the Amazon. And as you may imagine, when this movie came out, there was backlash from people who wanted to shed an honest light on what life was like for tribes in the Amazon. They were like, there are not tribes like this here. And so they took offense to the movie. They put a lot of public, it was a PR nightmare for Eli Roth. He had to backpedal on his own movie, but the movie is actually pretty good, I think. I don't know. I found it interesting and entertaining. And here's the thing. I get the need to be sensitive. Because with this movie, you're dealing with with racial stereotypes, and you're basically villainizing a people that you're making up. It's tricky in the horror genre because there's no horror movie that represents villains well, or even the actual story. Unless something is actually based on a true story and that is where the horror comes from, every movie is fictionalized that's in this genre. And if everybody who felt anywhere near that they resembled the villain in the movie raised their hand and said, I'm not okay with this movie, we wouldn't have the whole genre. So for me, I can understand why there was backlash against this one. And also, it was an interesting movie and it was a good watch. And I think there were some fun ideas. And I in no way thought that if I were to go to the Amazon, I would encounter this situation. I don't know. It's so tricky. It was a good film, um, but it's a controversial film. And, the people who spoke out against it, they needed to do that. Fair enough. And I don't know, maybe worth a watch with the knowledge that this is not based on real life. How about that? Boring every day. So boring. I'm sorry. This movie was so boring. I apologize to the people who made this film, but I could not, and I had to. There's so much time spent suggesting what the horror is, and I just, it's very restrained. It's so restrained that I almost fell asleep. Um, it's another cannibal movie, but is it? I mean, I don't know. It sort of is. That's the category that I was expecting when I went into this, and I don't know. Trouble Every Day wasn't for me. If you want I don't know how you pronounce her last name, but Beatrice Dale, if you want a movie with her on this list that is going to get your heart rate up a little, check out Inside. I'll get to that one later. Well, this one I think belongs more in the thriller category. I know that there's a lot of debate about whether thriller belongs in horror. This one sits in the fanaticism subgenre, which I think can be inherently frustrating, again, in a good way for people. This one has a star-studded cast, Matthew McConaughey, Bill Paxton. The subject matter here is that a father believes that God is giving him orders to destroy demons that are masquerading as human beings. So the question this movie makes you sit with is he destroying demons or is he just killing people? Um, and that is the whole premise that this movie sits upon. And they take you as deep into this as they can. Okay, here's the thing. I saw the movie title, I saw the cover of the movie, started watching it. I was like, oh, I think I've seen this before. I don't know that that's the best sign for a movie. A movie that's like, oh, I have seen this. Doesn't necessarily suggest that it left a huge impression on you the first time. So I guess it didn't. Um, but, as thrillers go, it's fine. It's fine. I wouldn't say that it super scared me, but I do think that if you are really religious, it probably is going to be a lot heavier of a movie for you. So this might be one you either gravitate towards or away from, depending on where you stand with that. This one comfortably sits in body horror. I've said it already in this video. Body horror in the past has been a challenging subgenre for me because of the vomit. I have a phobia around that. I've been working on it with exposure therapy. Thank goodness I did, because this is a movie that peddles in vomit as part of its mechanism for showing you the transformation of Jeff Goldblum. This is him and Gina Davis. I am pretty sure that I saw pieces of this movie probably soon-ish after it came out or within a few years. I was very young at the time. I had some visual images, but I didn't really remember the movie very well. And going back and watching it now, I have to say, the makeup and transformational work that they did on Jeff Goldblum is actually pretty impressive for the time in particular. It's a an ambitious transformation that they're trying to make to get him from being Jeff Goldblum, the person, or his character, to a fly. And all of the things that that involves, the walking on walls, the like defying gravity of it all, it was pretty impressive. Not, and that goes beyond even just like how they made him look. So I have to say they did a really good job making this convincing enough and realistic enough for what they were trying to accomplish for this movie. So I'm glad I rewatched this one or watched it for the first time, depending on how you count it. This is a second watch of Starry Eyes for me, and I think I appreciated it more the second time around. I mean, it was interesting the first time, but again, I think it helps that I've done some exposure therapy for my own phobia. Because there's a kind of a gross vomit scene in there. But I So the summary of this film is that a Hollywood starlet exchanges her soul for fame and fortune. It's not quite, I don't know that you'd put this in the meta subgenre, but I do think it's meta for the industry that it sits in. It's saying something about Hollywood. It's saying a lot of things about Hollywood. I think that the star Alexandra Esso, she did a phenomenal job embodying this character. And you really go on a ride in this film. This one was written and directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. And I don't know. I think I can't decide if it's something that everybody should watch because it's a good horror film, or if I'm particularly interested in it because I find the entertainment industry so interesting. So I don't know. I think if you're interested in the industry, then you definitely need to see this film because it's a basically a satire of that all by itself. And a good horror film as well. Ugh. I just this wasn't it. This wasn't it. I'm so sorry. Okay, so this is a movie about supposedly what really happened to the Apollo 18 lunar mission. This movie is sci-fi for sure, sci-fi horror, and found footage. And the found footage was so shaky and so disorienting that it sort of became nothing. Like it was so disorienting that I was just like, I don't know where I am. I'm not even watching this anymore. But I was. That was the feeling that I had while I was watching it. Ultimately, this one is going to track some, pretty big actors: Warren Christie, Lloyd Owen, Ryan Robbins. They're all in space. Um, there's a movie that came out much more recently called Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. That wasn't the same movie, but I think was doing some things that hit a similar vein. And I thought it was way more effective for me. So maybe watch that instead. I don't know. Found footage is a tricky subgenre for me because it often doesn't work at all for me. Like not even close. Um, Occasionally I'll get one that does and that I find interesting. This wasn't it. I'm sorry to the makers of Apollo 18. I don't know. If you're interested in found footage, this should probably be on your list, but hmm. This is a revenge film, and I found this intriguing because there's a battle 49 minutes in that I would have thought would be the final battle of the film. And they did it kind of early in the film. And then I thought, oh, where are we going from here? That's a great reaction to have when you've watched as many horror movies as I have, to be like, oh, I expected this much later in the film. So what are we doing in this film? Um, and it kept my attention because of that. And, another interesting thing about this movie is that being a revenge film, you would get the impression that something happens at the start of the film that somebody wants to get revenge for. That's how revenge films work. And in this movie, typically a lot of those films, there's an underdog quality to the protagonist, and so you're rooting for them. And that's probably true with this one also, but there are so many people used as bait in this film that I don't know if anybody has moral high ground. So I think, this gets you into some really interesting moral questions. And I don't know if that's like a common thing to say of South Korean horror movies, but I thought that was pretty cool. You know, we're heading into, I'm not like a big monster movie person. Those haven't been effective for me in the past. And like maybe animal monsters are sometimes more effective for me. Let the right one in is your basic vampire horror romance. Um, so there's that. But with these children at the center, it was actually a really sweet film. And there's a scene that I think on paper is the scariest scene of the movie. And my reaction was, "Aw." That doesn't really happen. I can't think of another movie, of another horror movie, that's made me go, "Aw," at like one of the scariest parts. And I think that is a victory for this movie. So, if you're keen to watch a Swedish horror film, let the right one in. That is the way to go. Well, I had to have a Giallo film on this list. If I were making a movie of favorite films, I don't know that I'd have any Giallo films on it, or favorite horror films for that matter. I don't know that I'd have any Giallo on it. I would say Deep Red, I thought was better than this one. Um, Giallo is a category a lot of people don't know about unless they study horror films specifically. I even know people who are movie aficionados who don't know anything about this subcategory. So Giallo is sort of like whodunit plus slasher, but more whodunit. It's not exactly a crime thriller because I think that can go in other directions as well. There are more modern movies that I think may give you a little bit of a Giallo feel. Something like Malignant would fall into that category. I actually think something like Scream would almost fall into that category. But Giallo tends to have some elements like you'll get some really specific visuals, like the glint of a weapon, the melodramatic death. Uh, there's a lot of stylistic consistency in this genre. So I guess that's the genre in general. This one was fine. If you're like gonna have a first foray into Giallo, maybe go with Deep Red. I mean, this movie is about Ryan Reynolds being in a coffin underground. If that scares you, then this is a scary movie. If that doesn't scare you, you're going to watch Ryan Reynolds in a coffin underground. Now, they have him in this coffin underground for so long that the challenge of the movie is can you keep it interesting? And I think they do. I think they do a good job with that. They find different ways to light this scene in a way that might make sense, that keeps it feeling a little bit fresh and different every so often. So there's that. Um, this is kind of a bottle episode of a movie where I think, when you get a TV show where things are mostly set in one location and you make it a bottle episode, usually that's because they're trying to conserve budget and having, you know, a location that's primary, maybe one actor that's primary, may help you to keep things a little tighter. The budget for this one was like $3 million. So it's a pretty expensive bottle episode of a movie, if you will. Um, just comparatively, I'm going to talk about The Evil Dead a little bit later. That movie in '89 had a $350,000 budget compared to this one's $3 million budget. I realize that the it doesn't convert to the same amount of money given the big spread of years, but The Evil Dead was trying to do a lot more things. So I think just to give it a little bit of perspective, this movie does keep it engaging. So I think it's worth a watch from that standpoint if you're just curious how they're going to keep you focused the whole time. Oof. So if you're looking for a home invasion film, ooh, this is one. This is a really, really bloody film. They were like, how do we get more blood in here? We want blood everywhere. More blood, more blood. It it's a bloody film. Beatrice Dalle is relentless and concerning and creepy. And Allison Paradis paced it very well. How long can you spend a movie being terrified out of your mind and still make it believable? So I think it was excellently done. If you're interested in a home invasion that's really, really bloody, then this is the movie you're gonna want for sure. Pretty fun to have a Neo Monsters film on this list. Okay, so this one is about a group of friends who explore a caving system that has never been discovered or reported to have been discovered. And they find out they aren't alone in this caving system. And it's a tough ask. When you come up with a script for a movie like this, the actual execution of it couldn't have been easy to figure out because, well, caves are dark. And you know, this movie, they found some not, I mean, there's only so many ways you're going to light a film like this. But they managed to find a few different things that threw different tints onto different characters, which made it easier to tell them apart, which is one of the challenges of the film, right? Because not only are they in a dark place, but they're all sort of in gear that's designed to keep them safe. And on a quick glance, when action starts happening, it can be difficult to tell people apart. This movie does a pretty good job of it because they came up with some systems for lighting people that help you mentally separate the scenes, at least to some extent. The monsters are pretty cool. And the ending threw me off balance as well. So it's not a favorite movie for me, but I do think it's a really interesting one that's worthy of conversation. Oh, I loved, loved, loved this movie. I had never seen it before. I have never even heard of it before. It was so good. Psychological horror, so smart. And it's a movie that sort of sends you into an existential crisis. It's like the Rorschach test of what did I just watch? It's like, who were, what just happened here? Um, I'm willing to bet that if you talked to a handful of different people about this film, you might get different interpretations of what they saw, which to me makes a really good horror film. I don't know. I need to have some conversations about it with people to make sure that's actually the case. But oh my goodness, it was taut, it was atmospheric, it was it left you with questions at every turn. It was well directed. If I were working on a list of favorite horror films, this has got to be on it for sure. I mean, there have been a few that I discovered in this round of 100 horror movies for EEKtober that I feel like belong on a favorites list. Martyrs was probably the first one that was brand new to me that I was like, ooh, and this one, Goodnight Mommy, for sure. Watch it. So good. Uh, Babadook, Duke, Duke. What a it feels like an iconic film. And I know that's a big word to throw around. It's a movie that came out in 2014. It's been a full 10 years. I don't know. I feel like before I had ever seen The Babadook, I had heard about The Babadook. And that was before I was really doing a ton of horror movies. I I don't know if that's the impression other people have of it as well. But what's so cool about this is it's a psychological horror film. It takes you into madness and paranoia. It does all that. But this is a movie on this list that I would put comfortably also into elevated horror because this is a movie that's basically making a statement about grief. It is a movie about grief in the trappings of horror film. And it's a really good horror film and a really good movie about grief. So I don't know. I like that it had that to say. I like that you come away. I think this is a movie that met, this is the second time I've seen it. The first time I saw it, I think I was more hit by the horror element of it. This time I was more hit by the grief element of it. And I feel like it's a movie that met me where I was each time in its own way. And I would be curious if I saw it again well into the future, what would be the thing that stuck out the most for me about that at that point? Um, I I think it's such an interesting extra element to it that it like the Babadook has become like an LGBTQ icon for a couple different reasons, and that's sort of interesting to read about as well. So I I like this film. I like it a lot. Is it a favorite film? I don't know, but I think it's really rewatchable and just has a lot to say. I'm glad this is out there. Well, okay, so this is another French extremity film, and this is the French extremity category was kind of wild for me to discover because on the surface of it, French extremity sounds academic and like way too much, very intimidating. But in reality, I had actually seen some films in this category already, and I think you could just as easily just call this one a slasher. I will say though, okay, high tension. If you have a movie called High Tension, you really need to keep the tension up, and it does. It is effective at keeping the tension up throughout. I don't know that the plot all the way works for me. Have you ever had this experience where you watch a film and they're trying to do a lot of things with it, and at the end of it, you either feel like, yeah, I kind of got that, but I don't know if I could explain it, or you might feel like, yeah, I don't feel like that worked, but if maybe if I did explain it, it would make sense, but it doesn't feel like it worked. For me, this is falls into that latter category of like maybe if I sat down and I started raising the questions that I have, the critiques that I have about the plot, I would find that they were all solvable and obvious. And yet my takeaway was, does that make sense? So I I liked the tension, I liked the slasher, I liked all of that. I don't know about this movie. All right, this one's gonna go sort of supernatural slash horror romance, right? And this movie has to walk a really fine line because we get Rose Leslie and Harry Treadaway are the two leads. They pull off, for me, really solid chemistry in a film that's meant to have the chemistry is meant to be way off in the film. That's a fine line to walk. Like where do you calibrate that when you're acting it, when you're performing it? And I think they landed in the right place. I felt invested in these characters and in this couple all the way through the end of the movie. And I liked it. It kept me engaged the whole time. So yeah, I hadn't heard of this one, but Honeymoon was an interesting watch. Oh, okay, in full transparency, this is not a first watch of this film for me. I have seen it. This is probably a third or fourth watch of this film for me. I actually considered putting Wolf Creek on the original EEKtober list when I did deep dives into 33 movies. Wolf Creek made it pretty far through the cut. It was towards the end, and I ended up cutting it pretty late in the game. But I could have done a deep dive about that film. And in this case, you're just getting a little bit of a glimpse at it. John Jarrett is Mick Taylor. He's absolutely outstanding. And what I love about this film is it hits a certain tone that I think gets partially achieved by the location, because if we're setting this in the Australian outback, I assume, Um, there's inherently an isolation there. There's a rugged feel to it, and that absolutely is matched in this character. He is raw, he is rugged, he is harsh. He has humor, but it is always very scary right underneath it. It is it's a humor with a real danger, a real sinister element there, and a real human element there. And it's a tone that they keep very balanced in the film, and I like it. I don't know that there's any villain that I can think of that's exactly like a Mick Taylor um, in this film, anyway. And I think they did a great job with this one. So, Wolf Creek, strong recommendation from me. Okay, as much as I like the first Wolf Creek, this, I don't know if they were trying to do the same thing or if they were trying to do something a little different. I'm not sure what they were aiming for with this. We've still got the backwoods killer situation. We've still got John Jarrett as Mick Taylor, but this movie has a different tone for me. It feels less isolated, feels like there are more people around, and there are, in fact, more people in these scenes. But where the tone really diverges for me from the first one is that Mick Taylor is quippier. He's quippy. He had a humor in the first one, but it felt dangerous. This one, the humor feels poppier. It feels like he's got a lot of one-liners that they were just trying to put zingers in. It feels more like a Freddy Krueger in this second film. And like Freddy Krueger is the type of character that I once went to a rooftop screening of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the whole audience cheered when Freddy Krueger came on screen. And it was this really fun moment that kind of made you smile. And it feels like Mick Taylor hits that tone more in this movie, and he did not hit that tone in the first movie. I think I like the first movie better, but there's absolutely a place for what this movie is. So depending on what you're looking for, I think these two movies stand alone just fine. I think you can watch them independently of each other. But yeah, it's just different, but under the same franchise. So I don't know what to tell you. Well, okay, so this wasn't a first watch for me, but I wanted to rewatch this and put it on this list because I actually find it pretty engaging. It's a backwoods slasher. Look, there's a whole bunch of those types of things on this list somewhere, so I guess I find it interesting to some degree. This movie, I really like Eliza Dushku at the center of it. Actually, there are two characters that I really am following and tracking as we go through, which I think is what they were intending from the beginning with this one. And I like that, we've got those characters and they're pretty smart. So it keeps it interesting for me that there are two of them to track. I think a lot of films try to have just sort of like one person at the center. And this one I don't know. I think it's watchable. I think it's rewatchable. I think it's fun. And it is part of the conversation of, that with so many backwoods slasher movies on this list. I think it's part of the conversation. It influences conversation. It riffs off of other conversations. It's just embedded. Well, okay. I had never seen any other movies in the Wrong Turn franchise except for the first one. So I thought, check out the second one. Maybe you should have stuck with the first one. So this is different characters in the same world as the first one. And it's set, it's the premise of this is it's set in the filming of a reality show. So that's what's happening in this world. That's what all the characters are doing. And then they hit the wrong turn vibe. They hit the wrong turn cannibal situation of it all. Um, yeah, I didn't like it as much. I guess 2000, if coming out in 2007 makes sense that they would be turning the conversation more towards reality TV. So there's something a little bit meta about that, but and they play with the meta-ness of it, but it wasn't as strong for me as the first entry. Okay, so this was a first watch for me. Found footage is I've seen so many horror movies that nothing scares me. Like just about there, I can't think of very many things that scare me anymore. I mean, I got through 100 films on this list, slept like, slept fine every night, no nightmares, so this isn't like uh, you know, found footage doesn't work for me when everything else does. Nothing really scares me, but found footage often falls very flat for me because it feels like in a lot of situations you're telling me what the story is rather than showing it to me, and that was the case with this film, unfortunately. The log line here is paranormal journalist Kobayashi goes missing after completing a documentary on his investigation into the demon Kagataba. A bunch of different types of footage are cobbled together for this to make the story make sense in how it's told. So there's some of it's meant to be like sort of it's not a documentary. It's a guy who was making a documentary, and then this is the retelling of what happened, like what happened in this, and he went missing and why and what went on. So I don't know. If you like found footage, this is probably a very strong entry in that category because I think there are things that could really work for you here. But again, it feels like how many lenses do I need to look through to see the horror? Um, but yeah, so Noroi the Curse, not for me. What a delightfully 80s throwback. Like it's a throwback to films from the 80s. This movie came out a couple years after Gremlins and absolutely is giving a nod to the Gremlins and other movies. In fact, Gizmo is even a thing mentioned in dialogue for a reason. One thing that I really enjoy about this film that sort of sets it apart a little bit is I love the subtitles for the Krites. There was a joke in a subtitle that landed so hard for me. I was cracking up at this movie. And I don't know, I think it's just a movie that just it is a time capsule of the 80s. It's all the things you like about 80s movies in one movie. So if that's the decade for you and you haven't seen this, be sure to check this one out. It's a little meaner than a movie like Gremlins. It's got a little bit more of an edge to it, but I think that's what makes it special and I like it. Okay, I'm so embarrassed to say this. So this was the first watch of this movie for me, of the George Romero version of this movie. And I got a little bit into the movie and I was like, I've seen zombie movies set in shopping malls before. And then I was like, oh my God. What's happened is I've seen the remake of this before I saw the George Romero version. Oops. Um, ugh. So this is this is the one that you're supposed to start with, I think. Okay, so obviously George Romero is, I mean, like watch your George Romero movies. He's sort of classic. He's an innovator in the zombie subgenre. And while the movie was good, though I liked once they got into the shopping mall, the movie found its feet for me. Up until that point, the movie had not found its feet for me. And maybe that was intentional, but I felt a certain chaos in the storytelling that left me uninterested until we got to the shopping mall. And then the movie became a very different feeling thing. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the charm and the magic of it and the intention and the genius of it to have the beginning feel like chaos when the world was meant to be in chaos and then to match it with the quiet of well, the shopping mall wasn't always quiet, but I don't know. The storytelling just felt very different to me. And while that could have been what makes the movie great for a lot of people, it um, felt jarring to me. So I don't know. I guess like absolutely worth watching, uh, especially if you're trying to be a horror movie buff. But I don't know. The zombie genre isn't something I gravitate towards a ton normally. Like I watched a lot of The Walking Dead, but movies, I feel like maybe I should have watched the movies first and then watched The Walking Dead. I don't know. So that's the Dawn of the Dead take from me. So what I'm trying to figure out is how did this movie get funding? Like I just who how how do you get into a room and explain to people what this movie is meant to be and then have them go, yeah, yep, we're giving you money. Let me explain it to you if you haven't seen it. It's a horror comedy about Nazi zombies. Tommy Wirkola directed it. It's about a group of friends who pick the wrong ski location for their fun weekend. They end up getting attacked by Nazi zombies. This movie, if you can imagine, from what I've just said, it makes very big choices about both its comedy and its action. And there is absolutely nothing sentimental about this film. We're talking big choices. If all of this sounds good to you, you'll probably like the movie. If you're like, don't get it, skip it. I mean, I think if you want to know about scary movies, like you just this is probably must watch viewing this movie. We've got Cillian Murphy at the center of it, Naomi Harris. It's a virus zombie movie. It is a beautiful movie. It is artistically shot and designed. So the director on this is Danny Boyle. Tons of Dutch angles. There's a lot of like, we could have shot it this way, but we shot it like this sort of scenes in this movie. Everything, it's just so beautiful. This movie also, like Night of the Living Dead, it's going to delve a bit into the world of like what happens after the military get involved. And so it's a way to sort of escalate a situation. I also think having seen a lot of I think I saw all of The Walking Dead, or at least the original series. Having seen that, I really think, especially the first season, takes a lot of inspiration from 28 Days Later. Uh, you just please see the movie. Like, I think it's a good movie, not just a good horror movie. So please watch. All right, this isn't 28 Days Later, but it's still a strong film. I really like Robert Carlyle. He's like very committed to this. I don't know, you can understand where he's making his decisions from, but he's not making the decisions you hope somebody would make in this situation. And I don't know, I saw him once in Once Upon a Time, and I know he's really good at committing to characters, so I was like primed to like him here. But of course, I always love seeing Harold Perrineau on screen because it just makes me want to shout. Walt. If any of you have seen Lost, you would know that one. Tons of action for sure. And this movie gets to know its characters pretty well, just like you see in 28 Days Later. We're going to see Jeremy Renner and Rose Byrne at the center of the movie. And again, not as strong for me as 28 Days Later, but still like a really good sort of gets your blood pumping kind of film. I love this movie so much. I mean, am I crying? Are you crying? Are we all crying? We're all crying. All the tissues need to be used while you watch Train to Busan. It's a sentimental zombie movie. I've been asking around, and I actually brought this movie as a suggestion into a film club recently and asked people in the group, like, would you consider this a scary movie? And a lot of people said it was very doable, even if they weren't into horror. So, um, some said it was more action than horror. Great. Music to my ears because I want people to watch this film. It's so beautiful. The acting. If you have an opportunity to watch dubbed, don't take it. Watch it with the subtitles, and here's why. The little girl who plays Sue-Ann acts her butt off. I melt when I look at this girl. Gong Yu, Ma Dong-seok. I think that there are different characters here that different people may become invested in. I think this movie, in a very short amount of time, gives you a character study of a whole bunch of different people and makes you feel invested in them and commits to action and has a fully formed plot. Um, I don't really know how they accomplished so much with the runtime that they had, but I think they did a great job. There were some really interesting visual ideas that I liked here, including I love the transformation of the zombies. I love the movement of the actors who played the zombies to transform into the zombies. That to me is outstanding work. I also love something like there's a scene with a bunch of zombies hanging off the back of a train and they're sort of piling up on each other that I thought was amazing, and I actually would be very keen to know how they made it. So this is a movie that I have a full deep dive in my original Inktober list. So anything that I have a deep dive for, I'm going to make sure that I either link it on screen here or in the description. I can only link so many things on screen. So if there are any things that I mentioned that you want to see, I probably have links somewhere in the description with other things that you can watch. But this one, I really hope you'll check out my deep dive on Train to Busan. Ugh. I don't know why I watched this. I don't know why I watched this. Why did I do this? I won't get that time back. I won't get the time back. Look. Okay, so this was a Rose McGowan film, but here's the thing about it. I guess that's the upside. This film is just dick jokes. I don't need that. This film is clearly a film works of Harvey Weinstein. I don't need that. This film, I will say, I am not a fan of Quentin Tarantino movies, things he's directed or written. I feel like I'm watching a teenage boy's fetish when I watch his movies. He did not write or direct this movie, I don't believe. But another strike against this movie is that Quentin Tarantino is in it and credited as the rapist. So we've got a lot of things going against this. This is a movie with it was all about the one-liners. I mean, dick jokes and one-liners. Like stuff as stupid as somebody getting their brain massacred and the joke is like, oh, well, that's a real no-brainer. Well, yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay. One-liners. Low-hanging fruit movie. Um, Also, there was a fake trailer for a movie called Machete that I think maybe Machete ended up getting made. But it became sort of like a cult classic fake trailer. So, I this movie is not for me. When I actually looked up the movie, there were so many people who were like, this is the funniest movie ever. Okay. If you like any of the things that I said I don't like, watch the movie. Because that's what it is. I bristled. I bristled at Planet Terror. Well, this was a what was this movie really? I mean, it's a movie, it's a vampire movie, okay? It's got Nick Damici, Connor Paolo, Kelly McGillis. Kelly McGillis is in this film. I would describe this. I don't know how you would describe this, but the way I would describe it is it's sort of like a Karate Kid slash Into the Wild with vampires. The relationships are the point. The relationships are at the center of this film. Uh, Altogether not that memorable for me, to be honest. I'm glad that I made notes about these movies as I was going through because I don't know that I would have remembered what I would have wanted to say about Stakeland. Sorry. Okay. Well, so this movie has Josh Hartnett and Melissa George. I like a lot of stuff Melissa George has done. In fact, on my 33 days deep dives previous Eektober list, I had Triangle with Melissa George, which I think is a really interesting movie. Well, so this one, okay, on the positives, the vampires were pretty cool. They were sinister. I liked how they talked. I liked how they had their own language. And that we weren't trying to translate them. I liked the lead vampire was so sinister. Just you could just hear him talk and not even know what he was saying, and you'd still be creeped out by him. All of that was great. On the downside, there's not enough suspension of disbelief in the entire world for me to understand this ending. And that's putting aside the suspension of disbelief you need for vampires, right? So I got past that. I got past that. And then I said, can I believe a world where these characters think this could be the ending of their movie? And that was a hard no. So, uh, I mean, it was entertaining for a while. And then the movie kind of left me like, nope, nope, nope. I don't know. And that is how I would assess 30 Days of Night. Hmm. Well, I think it's the first werewolf movie on this list of quite a few werewolf movies. A lot of them, it was a first time watch for me. I haven't watched a lot of werewolf movies or really anything in my life. So this one was British soldiers fighting werewolves in Scotland. That's what this was. There was a lot of really quick shots of the werewolves in the beginning, and then they have some more lingering shots towards the end. As I watched more movies in this subgenre, I realized that one of the features of a werewolf movie is how they tackle the transformation. This movie doesn't really tackle the transformation. It shows you some quick shots of some werewolves in the beginning and some more lingering shots later. And it asks you not to look super closely at them for a while. Um, and it made me wonder if like they were badly designed, but then they have more lingering shots later. So I don't know. Um, there was one werewolf induced injury that somebody like recovered from that I was like, come on, there's no way. You'd be so dead. You'd be dead within seconds. But hey, plot armor. That's a thing. Okay, interesting concept for a horror movie. Um, it's okay, so here's the concept. Defense attorney discovers her client did it, and he's a werewolf. That's it. That's the concept. Um, It's actually a really good concept for what this subgenre probably is, right? And not having seen a ton of movies in this subgenre, I was like, oh, that works. That makes sense. I thought that Vic Sahay and Simon Quarterman did a really solid job in this movie. Um, I thought that this movie was more intentional about showing you the human quandary under the werewolf, which of the movies that I've now seen about werewolves, not a lot of movies try to do that. There's not a lot of like, oh, but I'm a werewolf now. Like, what do I do? Like, this felt a lot like there were humans grappling under the weight of this, and I thought that was a pretty cool take on it, actually. So this one is directed by William Brent Bell. I believe he also did The Boy, if I'm right, which is a movie that I did a deep dive for, um, both in my previous EEKtober series, and I am going to cover it again here. So um, it was an interesting film, and I'm glad I watched it. Cool take. And I think there are a couple of, I think it would be kind of like trying to do a movie about like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's lawyer, you know? Like it's an interesting one. This hit all the right notes for me actually. So it's a giant monster film. It's also a found footage film, which, found footage films are super hit or miss for me. This one was a hit. I so this has Lizzie Kaplan in it, and it was a lot easier to follow for me than a lot of found footage films end up being. I think one of the things that found footage films sometimes do is they'll get people running because they want to show you they're afraid and they don't want to show you what they're seeing. They'll just show that they're running, and they'll do that by making a camera bounce so much that it just makes you nauseous. Um, this movie did a really good job of showing you things that actually built tension. You actually saw stuff happening in the movie. There was action on screen consistently. There was reaction on screen consistently. Um, there are quick flashes of monsters, of the monster and the other monsters, I think, and you're trying to piece together what it is you're seeing, just like the characters are. But, you know, I kept thinking to myself, are they just going to rest on these little flashes of monsters? No, they're going to give you exactly what you want before the film is done. So, like, I was really I was fascinated to see how that was sort of paced and how they built to making you want more of the monster and then paying it off. So I liked Cloverfield. I've certainly heard people say they don't like this movie. I think found footage movies, I think all horror movies are hit or miss. Like you're never going to find somebody like a movie that everybody agrees is amazing in this genre, or maybe in any movie at all. But this one for me was really strong. Okay, so Stephen King stories. I often find that Stephen King stories are set up really well for me, and then the endings don't work as well. That's often how Stephen King movie adaptations go for me. This was kind of the reverse. I actually thought the ending was the highlight of the whole film. And as I was watching, I was like, I don't know why I'm watching this one. I mean, look, Frank Darabont directed this. He was the director in the beginning of The Walking Dead, which was positive. But then I saw this movie and I was like, meh. Laurie Holden and Jeffrey DeMunn were in this, who were also in The Walking Dead. But this movie, I'd say all the way through the beginning, there was like a ton of bad CGI that took me out of the movie, to be totally honest with you. Um, what was great about the film was Marcia Gay Harden. I thought that she was so infuriating in all the best ways. She committed 100% to her role, and the people around her committed 100% to reacting to her character. That was the most believable part of this film. And then By the time I was getting towards the closing minutes of the film, I was like, well, I'm not getting that time back, but I've seen it. And then the ending redeemed it for me. It made me very, very happy. Um, which maybe isn't the response you're supposed to have if you're a normal human, but I'm me, and I thought that the ending was lovely. So, The Mist. I don't know whether to tell you to watch this thing or not. If you want to, I don't know, if you want to know what I was just saying about the ending, maybe watch it for that. I don't know. What did you think? Well, of course I had to have Pumpkinhead on my list. Of course I did. This Neo monster movie. Look, he's a monster who's born of a desire for revenge, and then he's tied to the person who wants the revenge. And I don't know, it feels it's 80s and it's atmospheric. It's got some really cool visuals. He doesn't look like a pumpkin, but he comes from a pumpkin patch in a graveyard. So I guess that's where it comes from. Yeah, it's like a cult classic, really. Just I can't imagine people find this movie scary if they're like if people are scared of scary movies, I bet they could still watch this. Would they want to? I don't know, but it's so fun. Yeah, Pumpkinhead. That's that's all I can say, Pumpkinhead. Okay, look, a lot of people are going to cite The Thing as their favorite horror movie. That is a thing in the world. There are certain movies out there that are considered the word classic is a tough word to throw around because if you say classic, do you mean like the monster movies like Dracula, Wolfman? Like, okay, that's classic. But there are other movies that, movies like The Shining or The Exorcist, which I didn't cover for this list, but I did cover in deep dives for my previous EEKtober iteration, where I did 33 movies as a deep dive. Movies like that are in a different conversation. They're older school and they're considered classic among horror fans. And The Thing, I'm sure, is in that category. The 1982, The Thing. It falls under sci-fi horror. And I think there's a whole bunch of people into the sci-fi genre who would absolutely love this movie. Um, Kurt Russell is the lead here, and John Carpenter directed it. He obviously went on to amazing things as well. And in addition to being a sci-fi horror, for me, this is a really solid entry in just the paranoia slash madness category as well. I think that this deserves to be in that. This is a movie. The sci-fi element here is alien related, and so you're going to get some really cool transformations here. And again, this being a 1982 film, it's a little delicate in terms of how you execute something like that and what was available to them to do that. And I think they did a really good job making transformations that felt scary and real and kept you in the movie instead of taking you out of the movie. Some movies shy away from transformations if they don't feel like they can handle it, and some do it badly. This one did it well. Oh, this one didn't work for me. Oof. This, when I first watched it back, I'd seen this once a long time ago. I didn't remember it very well. In fact, I forgot everything after the crop circles. So I forgot almost the entire movie. That says something. And now I know why it said something. I rewatched the film and it landed the opposite way of what was intended for me. In a way that horror movies aren't really meant to. Like, which is such a shame because this one, okay, so it has Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, Rory Culkin, the cutest Abigail Breslin. Abigail Breslin was cute as a button. I'm like, Shyamalan directed it. But here's the thing about it. It felt so like perfect and it sort of tried to tie things up in a perfect way, like you might see in like an Agatha Christie book, like, well, this happened, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then that happened. And unfortunately, the road that they walked me down in the ending was not the road I felt I was being walked down. I actually, and I'm trying to critique this without spoiling it for you. I will say that the movie for me did not feel anywhere near as sinister as I think they wanted me to think it was. I maybe thought we were heading towards a feel-good movie, which maybe is a stupid thing to say. Am I the only person who's felt this way about the movie Signs? I just, I, when the movie was done, I was like, oh, that's what you were saying to me? Because, oops. I don't know. I had they tested this with me before they did the final cut, I think they would have realized they didn't have what they thought they had. But I don't know if that's true of everybody else. So curious to get people's thoughts on the movie Signs. The Cabin in the Woods absolutely belongs in the meta category here, the meta subgenre. You know, there are quite a few films that have hints of that. And then there are some that land squarely in it, and this is one that lands squarely in it. It's a horror comedy because it's going meta, but it reflects on all of the tropes of horror movies, and in fact, captures every horror monster in a way. It manages to cover all of it. This has Chris Hemsworth, Richard Jenkins, Bradley Whitford. You know, you've got things like the isolated cabin in the woods. You've got the backwoods zombies, but you've got so many other. You've got the slasher element. There's something that feels supernatural about it. There's so much going on with it, and that's part of the point of the film. It's all set within a larger construct to make you think about horror films in general. And so I actually think whether or not you like some of the things I've said about what's in the movie, I think it's worth watching for the commentary that it makes about the genre. Even if you just see it once, I think there's something to be gleaned from it. So, The Cabin in the Woods, 2011, had some things to reflect on, and you decide what you think about it. Well, you're darn right I wanted Dolls on my list. I don't know. I never hear anybody talk about the movie Dolls. There's probably really good reasons why. It's so campy. It is unbelievably campy. A lot of creepy doll movies just fall under camp. It's not very often that you can get one that actually feels creepy. Um, this one, campy, all the way campy. It almost has a Gremlins feel to it that I just enjoy so much. It's a good, just have popcorn and laugh while you're watching the movie kind of movie. It, I suppose, tries to take a stance on morality if you want to look that hard, but maybe don't. It's just fun. Watch Dolls. I've seen the remake of The Omen and I've seen this movie, and there are pluses and minuses on either side of it. So this one has Gregory Peck, it has Lee Remick. On the minus side of this movie, I think that the kid is creepier in the remake, which I'm sorry, like maybe I shouldn't say that about a kid, but that's the point. A creepy kid movie, you're supposed to have creepy kids. Um, and the remake of The Omen does a really good job with that. And this one, I didn't think he was that creepy. They were telling me he was, but I didn't feel that he was. Um, but what makes this movie better is that I think the ending works a lot better for me. And so it makes the plot hang together better for me. So if I were to compare the two, I have to say that I think that this is the better film. But I don't know that like the tension of it is maintained throughout because I think it really rests on you being just like fully disturbed every second the kid is on screen. So I don't know that either film is a perfect film, but I guess I'd say this is the better movie. Your thoughts? So if you're going to watch a creepy kid film, I'm going to give you Orphan. I I'm just going to talk about it a little bit here, but I hope that you'll go check out my deep dive on the movie Orphan because I have a lot to say about this movie. I think it's an absolutely beautiful film, but more importantly, I think that acting wise, it was executed perfectly. Isabel Fuhrman, Vera Farmiga, Peter Sarsgaard, they were amazing in this movie, particularly Isabel and Vera. The attention to detail of this movie is so precise. I love, a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies, they'll play with how they present the logos at the beginning, and I love that they present the logos right from the top with black lights, with blacklight drawings. And that's something that we're going to come back to later in the film. So I like even that there was attention to detail from the first frames of this thing. And Isabel Fuhrman, wasn't she like 10 when she made this movie? I'm not going to say why that's so amazing. I'll say that in the deep dive that you watch later. But she was 10 when she made this film. This is a big ask. Not every 10-year-old actor could do this film. Very few probably could. She was genius in this movie. So I I don't know. I think this is one for people to watch. I will stand by that. And I hope you'll check it out if you haven't already seen it. Okay, so this one is once again Isabel Fuhrman and Julia Stiles. And William Brent Bell is directing this movie as well. And this is a prequel to Orphan, which I loved Orphan, so I wanted to check out Orphan First to Kill. This is a different movie for sure, but they found a way to make it uh, deserving and worthy of conversation in its own right. Um, the first movie, without really giving anything away, there are things about the plot that they can't replicate it here. They had to find other things to do. And I think that's a challenge that they took on when they decided to make the prequel. And I think they did a good job with it. Is it as good as Orphan for me? No, it isn't, but it's still really solid. And at this point, so let's see, Orphan came out in 2009, Orphan First Kill came out in 2022. They now had to age Isabel down. And without like getting into a lot of things about the movie, there were a bunch of different challenges they had with this that they had to figure out how to like problems they needed to solve. So I I think both of these movies are worth seeing. Orphan for sure if you're going to see one of them. And this movie had a lot to live up to as a prequel, and I think they did a respectable job. Uh, okay, so this one's in the meta category. It's in the found footage sometimes category. I just don't know that I altogether understood this. I didn't altogether understand this. I'll tell you that right now. So the log line of this is a friend forces a friend to detox in a cabin and then weird things happen. And maybe if I were to deep dive and took notes, I'd like unpack this in a way that felt worthwhile. But in the process of watching it, I was like, yeah, I don't know. That's all I have for you. I don't know. Any fans of the movie out there who want to change my mind or tell me what I was missing? Go for it. I welcome it, especially for something that's supposed to be meta. I'm like, all right, convince me. Okay, Unfriended is a new kind of entry into the found footage genre where Found footage when it started out, it was all about like people getting things on video camera or recording things and then finding the tape, finding the recording later. And this is more screen life. So this is more like all of the footage that you're getting, all of the information that you're gathering is just what's being presented to this character through their own computer screen. So I guess we put that in found footage, but it is a different thing, sort of. Some people will call it screen life. But it is, an experimental idea, because how do you keep an audience interested to see things just happening on screen the whole time? I think a movie like Host from 2020 lands a little better for me. That's a movie that I did a deep dive for previously in EEKtober. But this one tries to do a different thing than Host did and probably inspired a movie like Host as well. And would make future movies know that a thing like this is possible, where you can be tracking somebody's movements on screens and still stay invested in what's happening. So I appreciate the way that this movie was innovating. And maybe you feel like you've seen it now, we've done that, we've been there, but somebody had to get things going, and this is one of the movies that did that. So Unfriended is worth seeing just for that purpose, if nothing else. Well, hmm, I'm still thinking about this one. It's found footage, sort of. It's ghosts, sort of. This movie is more a contemplation of loneliness. I guess you would put this under elevated horror because it's really just a statement about, hey, what's loneliness like? What's this all about? What's this human experience? So, did I find it scary? No, I did not find it scary. Hard pass. But if you want to think about loneliness, this is the movie for you. It was time to get a good gothic horror on this list somewhere. This one's directed by Guillermo del Toro. Has Jessica Chastain, it has Mia Masikowska, Tom Hiddleston, Charlie Hunnam, star-studded cast. Beautiful to look at. I guess Guillermo del Toro has just like such a bold color palette. It's got this like almost fantasy stylistic element to it. It's got a fun atmosphere about it, a dark gothic fun atmosphere. A lot of reds and yellows in the color palette. I think when I think about this film now, most of what I think about and most of what I remember from it is the look of it. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough for a movie to make you recommend it, at least to see it. I mean, the plot was fine, but the look of the film is what makes it stand out. Okay, so this is your basic paranormal found footage movie. It's documentary style. So they don't put you in the action. They tell you about action that happened long ago in a very deadpan way. And they show you some footage or some stills. Is this scary for anybody? I'm serious. I'm not even asking for a friend. Does this land for anybody? Because there's so many layers of how removed we are from the scares. Is it meant to be just the very idea of what's happening is supposed to scare you? Is that what we're saying? Um, does this land for anybody? I want to hear from you. I'm always looking to find out what types of movies I can recommend to different type of people, at least in scary movie categories. So, like, where does this actually sit? Because for me, this registers negative on the scary meter. I don't know. I would love to get people's thoughts. Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't like this. I hit in a rough patch here in terms of my scary movie watching. A Tale of Two Sisters. Okay, South Korean film, psychological film. They were trying to do some really complicated things, and then they tried to sprinkle in some more complicated stuff. And in the end, for me, the movie felt ungrounded and unfocused. And I don't know. Also, I came away thinking that they were just trying to say like women are hysterical and abusive. Like that's like the women in the movie. They're hysterical and abusive. And or abusive, I should say. Not everybody is all those things, but like I just it just was too complicated for its own good, and I think that was a one-time watch for me. The rough streak continues with these 100 horror movies. Okay, we are still here. As I was going along, I thought, I'm pretty sure this is so bad it's bad. For a while, I was thinking that. And then at a certain point, I was like, wait, is it so bad it's good now? The acting wasn't good. They did make some cool choices along the way. I don't know. There's a fine line between so bad it's bad and so bad it's good. And I don't know where this one lands. I'm sorry. Okay, we're back. A movie I liked. A movie I liked quite a lot and wasn't really sure what I was going to get, wasn't really expecting it. This is a haunted house movie. It was very satisfying for me. It does simple things really well. It builds the story in a really effective way. And what it does that I guess is hard to do because we've seen some movies on this list already where I didn't think that they did it well. This movie, it leaves you undecided for a long time. It presents some options, not in an overt way, but it presents you with some options on what's happening in the film. And it just walks the line and lets you continue down both paths for kind of a long time. And they made the most of their budget. And Emily Goss is riveting. A lot of this movie is just on her face. You just have to believe what's happening in her reactions. And I did. I was with her every step of the way. And I think this was such a good job. This was Austin Keeling, Aaron Keeling, and Natalie Jones. I didn't know what to expect with this. I hadn't heard of it, and I liked it. Well, this is Sam Raimi's first feature, and here's what you need to know. It's not subtle. It's big. There's a lot of goop. So much goop. So many big choices. It's a fun film. Don't look too closely at the plot, though. Kandarian demons, they're going to possess people, and they become deadites. And you might find yourself asking, no, wait, how did this happen? How did that? Why is this? Who is that? Don't ask. It's because Sam Raimi said so. Okay. That's all this movie is asking you to do. Just be on the ride. Just relax into it. That's what we're doing here. So you're going to get some extreme close-ups. You're going to get some low-budget costumes, like dollar store Halloween costumes look. A lot of goop. And one of the reasons you're getting all that look is, and the quality of it is the budget. This had like a $350,000 budget. And for comparison, The Exorcist had like roughly an $11 million budget. Very different film. They were trying to be more subtle and tell more story, but that's a big spread in what these movies have available to them in terms of resources. So you can tell the kind of ideas Sam Raimi has here, and the execution of it was limited by the budget, but still fun. If you want something just fun, watch this film. I don't know. This feels like the prequel to some other movie. I don't. Like there, it feels like there was some big movie and this was a prequel to it. And it's weird because I've seen other stuff with these actors and I think they're good, like Ashley Rickards, um, both Ashley Rickards and also Catalina Sandino Moreno. I've seen in other things and I thought they were strong. And they were strong in this. The storytelling is so quick. I felt really uninvested in it. Um, I don't really want to give away what I don't resonate with about the plot. It's a really forgettable movie for me because I don't know what it did actually. Apologies. Um, but that's how I feel. Okay, Sam Raimi is back, but it's 30 years later and people finally gave him some budget. Okay. So Sam Raimi does all the things that you know Sam Raimi likes to do. He likes to have lots of goop, lots of spring, lots of gross stuff, tons of that. You're gonna get all of that. But he has more budget. He has like a $30 million budget for this one. Remember, the Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead was like a $350,000 budget. He must have been like 30 million. Or maybe he was like, that's exactly what I needed the first time. Because of that, he's still making the same kinds of aesthetic choices, but he has CGI now to play with, and he has just other technology available to him to execute it. So the look of the film is different while the choices feel the same. Alison Lohman is a great face of the movie. I think the camera reads really well with her. Justin Long cracks me up throughout the movie in a lot of subtle ways. He's never really stealing the scene, but he always says things that add just delight for me. And just in case you were wondering, yes, Octavia Spencer is credited as bank coworker number one. Yeah. So if you want to just have like a quick comparison of one director over 30 years and a lot of difference in budget, this this movie and The Evil Dead are two interesting ones to compare against each other. In the paranormal category, The Conjuring is definitely a famous, more modern movie. More modern. It's from 2013. I would absolutely consider that more modern compared to some of the other movies in this category. Um, it's got Vera Farmiga, who's amazing in everything she does. It's got Patrick Wilson. It's got Lily Taylor, who appears in so many horror movies. James Wan is directing it. He has it's been interesting to track his career, and to see how his style has developed over time. There are a number of paranormal elements in this. I don't, I don't know how much of a spoiler it would be to label it more because you could label more subgenres here, and I don't want to do that. So I will say it's a well shot movie. It's a well acted movie. It's interesting to follow. I think the effects are good. And if you're interested in paranormal, check it out. Okay, so it's a supernatural film, it's a psychological film, and the message under the whole thing is, hey, STDs are bad. It's actually a really smart concept for a horror film when I think about it. I don't know if it executes the way that it needed to, but it's a smart concept for sure. Mike and Monroe is the face at the center. I just feel like when I see her face, I think of this movie. It's an ominous movie. It's a looming movie, and the threat, we as an audience don't get to relax from it because the characters never get to. And I suppose that's the same as STDs. I I just it's amazing there aren't more horror movies about this, unless there are, and they just are a little less direct about it. I don't know. So, it follows, maybe worth a watch. This one's one of Mike Flanagan's earlier films. And Mike Flanagan, I mean, if you know horror, you've heard his name. He's certainly built a name for himself in this genre and has done a lot of really cool work, both in TV and movies. So, Oculus is an early entry for him, supernatural for sure. We're going to get Karen Gillan, we're going to get Katie Sackhoff. The logline here is a sinister antique mirror with a history of killing people is being investigated by its human adversaries. That's how I would describe it. And hmm, it's not my favorite Mike Flanagan film. Um, I mean, it doesn't land as scary for me as some of the other films he's done. My favorite horror film of all time is Hush, which will appear on this list and will also appear in my 33 days, my 33 movies deep dives as well. Uh, this movie, I think the concept was really good. I like the idea of it. Um, I don't know that it ever quite lands in the all the way scary place for me, but I do think that if you like supernatural films, it probably is much more effective. So if that's the kind of thing that scares you, worth a watch, especially knowing what his career has gone on to be since then. I I didn't need this. I My relationship to musicals is fraught. Some musicals can work for me if there's a reason for people to be on stage, so maybe that could have worked about this, but then it was supposed to be a horror movie about vampires. This movie was trying to do so many things, and it didn't do any of them for me in the end. I don't know. It was about so many things that ended up being about nothing. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people love this movie. I didn't like this movie for some of the same reasons that I didn't like the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. There were a lot of people who loved that film, and I came away from it like that plot could have been 50% leaner and still been okay. This I feel like, oh, I didn't need music. I didn't need music at all. If you wanted this to be a horror movie, if you wanted to make it scary, I didn't need music. I'm really stuck on that, folks. I'm so sorry. Ryan Coogler directed it. Michael B. Jordan's in it. Haley Steinfeld. There's some big names. But really, if you're looking for this to be a horror film, like you're gonna have to wait to the last like 30 minutes of the 2 hour runtime. And when you think about horror movies, it is a rare scenario where these movies go over 2 hours. And those movies are like The Shining and The Exorcist, and they've earned it. And this one didn't for me. I'm so sorry. I have no doubt there are a ton of people who like this movie and will defend it to their death. I'm happy to hear from you. Tell me your thoughts. I'm sure a lot of people would like this to be a recommended movie. I'm just not the person for that. I had heard of this movie and I hadn't seen it before. And the idea of the title was scarier to me than the actual movie because I thought to myself, how could you have eyes without a face? And I thought of all these ways that could be a thing. And then in reality, for a movie from 1960, you can't really have eyes without a face. So I guess my imagination, just from the title, was bigger and bolder than the movie itself. But I liked a lot of things about the movie. I like that they chose like musical themes for some of the characters to keep you very aware of who you were seeing on screen. I like the idea that, like, while I don't know that you would say this is an elevated horror, I do think you could say this is a movie about guilt and like how you deal with grief and how far you can go for those you love in an acceptable way. I think it does sort of ask questions like that. Um, I like the use of the mask. I think that horror movies the use of masks in horror movies is an interesting thing to look at. Sometimes they make things scarier, sometimes they make things less scary. Depending on who you are, you may react to them differently. Some movies' use of the mask might signal a stalker or slasher, like the perpetrator. And in this movie, maybe it still does. I don't know. It's a movie that makes you look at the morality and makes you ask how much compassion you have for people's situations in a way you might not think it would do. So it got me thinking at the very least. Well, this is a proper classic, right? I mean, 1920, we've got German expressionism here. It's a silent film. I mean, I think this properly belongs with the word classic in all the ways that you can think of the word classic. Um, this is an early horror movie. It's got a great bad guy. It's got a main character who knows what he knows, or does he? So it's kind of got that madness, paranoia thing going. Also, this movie makes a choice to tell this. There's a framing device that this is a story being told. You maybe could do without that in this movie, but I guess why I like that for this film is it gives you the feeling of like the lore has continued. The tradition of this story will continue to be passed down, and today it's being passed down to us. So if you haven't seen this, I think it's worth a watch. If silent films and black and white films aren't your bag, I still would say like maybe put this one on the list, but not others. So I'm glad I saw it. Ooh, this movie. Okay. This movie, I've seen this movie twice now. This has met me where I am this second time. I saw this, so this came out in 2019. I probably saw it right when it first came out, maybe just soon after. And it was fine. Like it was a good movie, but and there are things that I remembered about it watching it back this second time, but it wasn't like it wasn't a movie that I was like rushing to create a video about or like write home about. This second time, it met me right where I was, and it is so brilliant. Okay, so this is directed by Jordan Peele. Genius movie. The plot here is a lot what I took away because I think this movie is trying to say some important things. You could find different important things that it's saying. For me, what landed for me this time around was the idea of the horror being your shadow self, the fight being the villain being against your shadow self. Which one is going to win? Which one's going to get a home? There's a theme of homelessness throughout the movie. It's a scary idea that exists within all of us. This movie harnesses it. And it also finds a really good balance between the scary stuff, the deep stuff, and the humor. I think Winston Duke adds a lot of humor in just little lines that really add up. Elizabeth Moss adds some great humor. She makes some big character choices. Lupita Nyong'o is amazing in this movie. She made some bold decisions as an actor that worked really well for this movie. And this movie gives a little bit of Black Swan energy, actually. So this might be a good one to compare up against that one or like do a double feature with it. Different movies, but I think there's a thread there that ties them. One of the lines that I really loved that made me think was, "We're taking our time." And there's like different ways to interpret that all work for this movie. Brilliant writing. So Us, I'm now a big advocate for this movie. So glad that I saw it again. Okay, uh, I'll tell you what. I think I just don't like David Lynch films. I I don't know. I would think that I would like surreal. I like weird, and I thought I would like surreal. And I don't like his films so far that I've seen. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, this film, it's about a reluctant father. There's a lot of sexual symbolism. Of course, this wasn't intentional because I didn't really know what the movie was about when I watched it. This is the 69th movie that was on my list. No idea that was gonna be so appropriate. It's a body horror film, sort of. I don't know. It falls under that category, but not in the way that some other ones do. This movie was very dark, but like actually dark, hard to see. So I don't know. This is not my bag. If you like David Lynch films, watch this. If you don't like David Lynch films, it's a David Lynch film. Yeah. Okay, this is another black and white entry, 1962. It's a psychological film. I think they pick some good faces to be the faces of the movie. Candice Hilligoss as Mary, she has a very expressive face. Herc Harvey is the man, and like he's always ominous and distinctive when you see him on screen. He actually directed the film as well. It's a clever film. I think now we would probably have a conversation about this film being about survivor's guilt. I don't know if it's maybe a little too much to say that it's an elevated horror, but like I think you can absolutely talk about survivor's guilt when you talk about this film. Then maybe you were just thinking of it as a psychological horror. I'm not sure. I don't know that this is a standout movie for me, but it was worth a watch. You know what? I hadn't seen this movie before, and that was a real shortcoming, I think. I needed to see this film. I feel more knowledgeable about horror films having seen this film. Like, I think this probably had some influence for other films later on. It has a bit of a longer run time, and it's a classy film in its way, in a lot of different elements of it. We get George C. Scott at the center. He's an esteemed New York City composer who relocates to a Seattle mansion that he comes to believe is haunted. Um, you know, the funny thing about this is Neve Campbell, who you may know from the Scream franchise, she does a lot of like conventions, and she is constantly asked, "What's your favorite scary movie?" Of course, she would be. And she basically always responds, "I actually don't like scary movies, but if I had to pick one, there's one that I've seen that I liked, and it's The Changeling." So I had never seen it. Now I have, which I feel much better about. But, you know, like a lot of horror movies, it starts with a tragedy for the protagonist. Uh, I don't know if that's an actual trope, but it must be, right? Because it happens in a lot of movies. And I think that starting with a tragedy gives us empathy for the main character, and gives them empathy to perceive in a different way the things that are happening around them, which I think works pretty well for a haunted house movie. So, worth watching if you want to be educated about horror movies for sure. The Changeling, go check it out. I had an interesting experience with this one. I knew that it was going to be on my list for this series. I was not looking forward to it for some reason. I was like, "Ah, I have to watch Jacob's Ladder." And I couldn't remember if I'd ever seen it before. And then as I was watching it, I realized I hadn't. I probably felt that I have to see Jacob's Ladder before and decided not to watch it. And this time I decided to watch it. And I'm so glad that I did. It's a really good film. It's a horrific story and it's beautifully told. It's got Tim Robbins at the center. It's set in a backdrop sort of the Vietnam War. But the thing is, there are multiple realities that are presented to you. You spend a lot of time in this film feeling untethered. But what I'm really glad that I watched this after A Tale of Two Sisters because in that movie, I thought, can you just not do Untethered and make it work for me? Because that movie didn't work for me at all. This movie did. It was ungrounded, untethered, but it still felt like everything was in its right place somehow. I didn't question the telling of the story in the way that I did A Tale of Two Sisters. I think it was really well done. It's kind of like almost like a color sorting puzzle. Like at first you're like, what is this? And then all of a sudden things start to come together for you. Have patience with the film and you will get there. I am regretful that I put this off for so long. Okay, we're back to some werewolf entries here. I had never seen an American Werewolf in London before, and the effects are very 80s in this movie, except the transformation. That first like main transformation scene was amazing. I A lot of the movie felt like it didn't have a ton of budget, but they probably poured a ton of budget into that one scene. It's a scene that some werewolf movies shy away from of showing you the transformation. It's a scene that some movies try it and they fail. There will be a movie on this list that I critique for that reason. This movie stays with the transformation from human to wolf, and it's really well done. And if you watch the movie only for that reason, which is part of why I watched it, it's worth checking out for sure. Also though, like what's the deal with those people from the slaughtered lamb? I am so glad I watched this. Can I just tell you, like, I didn't, when I was watching this movie, I thought, I don't know if I like this. I don't know. This is too out there for me. This is too weird for me. And this movie has been living rent-free in my head ever since. I've watched many horror movies since then, and I continue to think about House. And I like it more and more in my head. So I want everybody to know about it because I don't know if you're going to like it or not. It's so strange in a way that honestly only a Japanese film can be strange, I think. But it was so good. Basically, the log line of this is that vacation plans fall through for seven friends, so they go to one friend's aunt's house and things happen. Um, the friends have very specific names like Gorgeous and Kung Fu and Prof and Melody, and they have these like skills or personality traits that match up with those names that help them as things go strange in the house. Here's what is most important for you to know. The editing style of this is so wacky. It's like, and I can't believe that I'm trying to describe it this way because I was trying to think like, how would I explain this to somebody? This is edited. First of all, it's edited like a series of commercials. Like it's as if it's edited for people with really short attention spans. It keeps trying to bring you to like natural conclusions. Like every like couple minutes it feels like as you're going through the plot. But the editing, I would describe this as it's like Pee-wee's Playhouse meets Fairy Tale Theater. Those remember that show from the 80s hosted by Shelley Duvall? So Pee-wee's Playhouse meets Fairy Tale Theater meets like Mentos slash Double Mint gum commercials from the 80s. Combine those things, make it a horror movie, and that is House. This was so bad. Just bad. Not so bad it's good. So bad. Have you ever gotten a haircut that looked good and then you knew it was going to grow out to a place that would look good, but somewhere in the middle it just got goofy? They tried to do, in addition to the plot itself being goofy and bad, they tried to actually show the transformation from human to wolf. And most of the stages in the middle were so goofy it was laughable. And I was like, why? Why did we need this? I don't really get it all the way. Um, Also, just in terms of just like it's a bad movie. Like Karen stands there for an entire minute watching the wolf, the human change to a wolf. And in that time, she's holding acid, and there's a door open where she could run away and get away from the whole thing altogether. She waits a full minute for the transformation to take place so we, the audience, can see it. And then she's like, oh, and then she runs. I, I'm no. Well, I imagine this is a controversial movie, and I cannot say why without spoiling it for you. So, probably controversial. This movie is so bad it's good. It's so bad it's so terrible it's good. Um the it's a slasher. The deaths in this movie are very interesting and creative and like no, can't happen. And like the corpses look like week old corpses, like 1 minute later. I think, not that I've seen a week old corpse, but I just like, okay. But I love that every time somebody is about to get killed, they see the killer and they're like, not you. Um, it's so bad, it's good. Uh, yeah, it's watch it with that in mind for sure. Watch it for fun. Okay, I've got to tell. So this is my second watch of this film, and I have to tell you, like the first watch was not long ago, maybe 5 years ago. I don't know. Um, I recognized Pinhead, having never seen the movie. I've known that face for a very long time, even before I watched a lot of scary movies. Very recognizable figure in the horror genre. And I think that's saying something to create a character that can you just know, even if you've never seen the movie. Um, and, you know, Pinhead turns out to be the lead of the Cenobites here. Um, I I think it's an interesting film. I think it's a fun film. I think it's a film that I spent the whole beginning of the movie like, do I understand what's happening here? Am I missing some like important lore? But if you're patient with it, the movie will unfold itself to you. It's not trying to be confusing. It will explain itself. It just takes a minute to get there. And I will say, Kirsty has a lot of explaining to do for Steve. Okay, this is another phobia film. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And I had one memory that was rock solid of a spider in a bucket of popcorn. Uh, yep, it's that and that scene was in the movie, all right. I It's a phobia movie. It's especially effective if you have a phobia of spiders. I don't know if I'm gonna say I have a full-blown phobia of spiders, but I'm not comfortable with spiders. I don't like jumping spiders. And I didn't like them in this movie. This movie for me, I think was more effective in its scare. For me, it was more effective in its scares like in the middle of the movie when you were dealing with a smaller volume of spiders, but they were there was more tension and suspense around what that one spider was going to do. By the end of the movie, it's like an orchestra. It's like a crescendo of spiders, so many spiders that the volume diluted the scares for me. But maybe that actually makes it more effective for some people. John Goodman was a delight in this film. This movie achieved its intention. It really did. It is a crocodile movie with Betty White, and they gave her full license to do blue comedy. I mean, that's what this movie is. It is a movie that is called Lake Placid and is set in Maine. This movie knew what it was. It knew what it wanted to be. Watch it to just be entertained. You don't need to get cerebral about it. Just be entertained. That's all. I had never seen this one. And it felt like a must view. This felt like one that I was needed to be corrected. I needed to see this one. So it's a monster sci-fi horror film, 1954. Um, and it's just recommended viewing if you feel like you need to know what's up with the genre itself. Um, what is up with creatures loving women? King Kong definitely laid a foundation for that for us, and this continues it for sure. It was in 3D, I think, originally, right? I kind of wish I would have seen it in 3D, but I did not. Okay, Rico Browning was the Gillman underwater. And I was reading about him. He can hold his breath for 4 minutes, but he said, like while you're swimming for him, he could hold his breath for maybe like 2 minutes. And that made me really think about how arduous a task the filming must have been, because there was a lot of underwater scenes here where he had to swim. And my goodness, this must have been a lot of effort, this shoot. It couldn't have been easy, especially in 1954. Um, but I think they did a really good job with it. I think they executed it well, and I don't know, it adds some new context for me for some other movies that came later. I really wanted to see the original for this. I had seen the remake before, but I really wanted to see Wes Craven's version of this. I like Scream, I like A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was interested to see some of his earlier work. My understanding is this isn't his first film, but by the time he got to this one, he kind of wanted to try a non-horror film, and the people who were doling out budget were like, nope, we're only giving you money if it's a horror film. So he was like, okay. So he makes a film about cannibals. But what is cool about this film, like if you watch some cannibal films or like backwoods films, you get characters like villains that just like grunt. These guys had a plan, which is, I think, inherently scarier. They read as a little more intelligent, but they can definitely orchestrate situations to match their needs, which feels like a scarier premise to have. Susan Lanier as Brenda Carter, how was she able to scream that much? That woman's voice must have been raw. That's what I think about The Hills Have Eyes. This is one of the most recent films on this list. It's written and directed by Zach Kreger. So good. I love this film. And I actually think maybe this also is a candidate for being on a favorite horror films list. I'd have to think about it, but maybe. I don't know how long the list would be, but it could very well be on there. This who subgenre wise, I just said supernatural. There's other things I could say, but I don't want to spoil the film, and I'm not sure what would be a spoiler to the film. So I just kept it at supernatural to keep it simple. Julia Garner is amazing. She's always amazing. I mean, if you watch her from like the assistant to Ozark, you can tell what a range she has, and she's just brilliant in this movie. But I think Amy Madigan really steals the show for me. What a great character, what commitment to the character. Um, there were some inventive directing choices, things I hadn't seen before, and I particularly want to highlight. There is a scene that involves somebody bursting through a glass door or more than one glass door, but they show it from behind the person bursting through. And I'd never seen that vantage point before, and it comes out stunning. I was like watching this film and thinking, wow, Uh, Unfortunately, that's why horror movies don't really scare me anymore because I'm watching for things like this, but this was worth it. The fight between Josh Brolin and Austin Abrams made me laugh so much. Like, shout out to stunt people, assuming stunt people did all that. One other thing, I love the choice to structure this movie by the characters, and I like the choices of what went into each section with the characters. The only thing that I am not sure I needed is I don't know if we needed the voiceover framing of this movie. I feel like there's a way to just get into it that would have worked. And I don't know exactly why we needed that, except if we're going to say, like, this is now the story that's being told, this is the folklore, this is the lore that is transferred, this is the story that will continue for time, immemorial. If that's what we're saying, great. I just don't know that it was necessary for the movie. Such a good film. I've seen it maybe a few times now, and I can always come back to this film. It's horror, but it has an important message to share. It's also just feels like a drama. This one is written and directed by Lee Wanell, who also wrote the first three Saw movies, Insidious. So he's done a lot of different things in the horror genre. And this one is a really strong entry for him. It stars Elizabeth Moss. I don't know if we would call this an elevated horror because it's the theme is so overt, but this is very much a movie about um, the realities of domestic violence and emotional abuse, and it's both literal and figurative in the movie. One other thing that I really like about this film is that as technology has advanced over the years, different movies have taken advantage of it in different ways, and some of them they've overused it or it makes movies ungrounded and unreal. This movie, I think it the technology used supports the film. It doesn't overshadow it. It doesn't get in the way of it. Um, I think it's a film worth watching and actually having a conversation about the reality of what this person is dealing with or what this character is dealing with. Okay, I would put this one into elevated horror. Um, this movie is so beautiful. I actually also did a deep dive about this movie in previously in Inktober, and I hope you'll check this out. I so enjoy Brian Bertino's films. He's really good at building atmosphere, slow-moving tension. He's good at working in dark spaces and lighting them well. He's really good at making you look into the distance to find where the scary thing is. And he does all of that in this movie. But at the core of it, for me, this is a movie about alcoholism and a mother and daughter. And I think that's both in the flashbacks in an overt way and in the monster in a figurative way. And my goodness, Ella Ballantine, who plays Lizzie, and Zoe Kazan, who plays Kathy, acted their asses off. I think this is such a beautiful film. I hope more people will watch it and talk about it. Damn. I mean, this movie is unrelenting and cynical in the survival category. Um, the stars are Kelly Riley and Michael Fassbender. I forgot that Michael Fassbender was the man in this movie. I was like, oh my God, I've seen him in so many things now that that my wow, to see him in this. Uh, Pretty much all of the men in this movie make things worse. Like all of them, whether they're meant to be villains or supposedly trying to help, they all make things worse. There's a lot of like testosterone is not helpful sort of stuff going on in this movie. But This is a movie that I saw once and I kind of remembered it and I was like, yeah, I need to see it again. And I did need to see it again. So I'm glad I saw it for this. Okay, I hadn't seen this one and I really felt like I needed to, not just wanted to, but actually needed to. I suspected this movie was something that has influenced future films and future filmmakers. It's referenced in the movie Scream, and now that I've seen it, it absolutely feels like the movie Scream. It feels like Scream took inspiration from this movie. This movie is delivered true crime style. It's not documentary, but it's got a narrator and it's got the true crime feel to it, but it still puts you into the action. It's based on an actual case of a serial killer. Future other movies pretend that they're based on real events to make things scarier. This one actually based on real events, and it is sort of a progenitor for something like Zodiac. It shows the grounds for the fact that a movie can work like this. It also gives an example of an early real person masked killer. So, an important one, I think, to watch if you want to be knowledgeable about scary movies. I hadn't actually heard of this one, and I probably should have, and I'm glad that I've seen it because I've watched my share of competition reality shows, and this is very much in the same vein as that. This is like if you like something like Alice in Borderland, or if you like Squid Game, if you like competition reality shows where people have to vote each other out or vote to evict people or whatever, this is your wheelhouse. It is clearly a very tight budget film because it's basically all in one location. And they still manage to keep it interesting. They manage that runtime with a lot of people on the cast and a lot of dialogue and a lot of it's a lot of getting people's debate and conversation captured. So I think it actually feels like the film is a play and they just filmed it somehow, which is unique to a lot of the other movies that I've seen, unique to all of the other movies I think on this list, and not a movie I had heard of, but probably one worth a look. As somebody who loves home invasion movies, I cannot believe that I haven't seen this one. I imagine the only reason I haven't seen it was because it's a foreign language film and had subtitles, and maybe that discouraged me in the past. That's a shame. That's a real shame. This was a cool movie. The locations were cool. The house is really interesting. The location for the final scenes was interesting. That is very important, I think, for home invasion or survival because you need sort of fascinating spaces with multiple entrances and exits, and this had that. Also, this movie has kind of a short runtime, but it does exactly what it needs to, and it really doesn't need to be any longer. There's a lot of disorientation happening in this movie, and I think part of that is achieved through the use of a handheld camera. They disorient you a lot of different ways, including through those locations, but the handheld camera use helps a lot in that effect, and I think they used it well. So I am sorry I didn't see this before, but this is way up there now on my list of home invasion films. I'd seen Final Destination, the first one, and I liked it, but I'd never seen Final Destination 2. And I specifically put this on the list because of all the references I've seen to logging trucks in real life now, when people talk about this movie and they see a logging truck or they see a logging truck and they talk about this movie. So I felt like I needed to know what the conversation was about. And now I know. That is a great thing. This movie, I guess you technically could take it to a deep place to have a conversation about like the inevitability of death. this movie doesn't really take it to that kind of place, but you could probably have a conversation like that on the back of this. And then, my favorite scene in this is one that has to do with a lottery winner. There's so many misdirects in this movie, which is sort of baked into the premise of it. But, you know, is it my favorite horror movie ever? No, but I'm glad I saw it because I want to know what people are talking about when they see logging trucks. I really enjoy this movie. I enjoy it so much that this was on my list, my deep dive list from last Inktober. So if you are interested in this movie, check that video out. I had a lot to say about this film. This is another William Brent Bell film. It's a creepy doll film that actually gets creepy and stays creepy, which is so rare. I find creepy doll films get campy. And creepy doll films that I saw as a kid, I remember being creepy, but then when you see them as an adult, you're like, this keeps the atmosphere and I like that it's set in a mansion. And all of that really works for me. And I I don't know. I do have a lot to say about this one. I hope that you'll check out the movie if you haven't already seen it. And maybe some people will discover it from this, which would be awesome. So enjoy the boy. What you say? What you gonna... Okay, I had to. I'm sorry, I had to. I only know Logan Marshall Green from The OC, from the famous scene. You may know the scene from the spoof of it from SNL's Dear Sister skit. Um, Here's another thing with Logan Marshall Green. I can't look at him without thinking about that scene. Okay, this isn't a good movie, and it's less home invasion-y than I remembered, but I will say that I saw this once years ago, like what, it came out 2021, probably a few years ago. And there are things that I remember very well about it all these years later. So I guess that's saying something. It's not a great movie, but there are some things I remember. I will say that there's uh, a level of the reality of this film that probably a lot of people do actually live with in real life. Women, for sure, people in general, like there's a real lived in version of this horror. This is just an escalation of it with a particular plot that doesn't always feel grounded. But there's a base state of this that I bet a lot of people can recognize. And maybe that's the scariest part of all. So this is a slasher that has a bit of the aesthetic feel and tone of like I Know What You Did Last Summer and some of those late 90s slashers. There are a couple movies on this list that capture that feel. This is one of them with Hellfest. I really like the concept of it. I like the idea of a place that is inherently scary, that's designed for people's entertainment and amusement to be scary, and then actual scary things happen there. And this movie peddles in jump scares. It's all about that. The other thing is that Gregory Plotkin, the director of this film, he really goes there. There is some gore in this film. There are other movies that would make choices to cut away right before that they show you the thing. This does not shy away from the thing. Like whatever the scary thing is that's about to happen to a person, you're going to see it. And so if that's not your deal, there are other movies that are less graphic than this, but this one is graphic. And so that is something to consider. If you're looking for a lighter slasher, there are definitely some out there that are good for you. I love a good home invasion film. Is this good? I don't know. It's not bad. Some people might think it's bad. I kind of like this film. Mostly because Natasha Henstridge grounds it. Jason Patrick, I think, also does a good job grounding the film. The villains are a little too loud and brash and mustache twirling for the movie they're in. If they were directed in a different way, if their choices were a little different, maybe the whole film would work. I was still kind of like what we get. I also like the idea of home security being sort of used as a tool to support the protagonist, which is it's nice to have that and to have a human presence behind it. I think now we're getting into a space where we're going to see a lot of horror movies about AI and AI going wrong and AI attacking people. And this is kind of interesting because there's tech, but there's a human presence behind it supporting the hero. So I think that's an interesting space that not a lot of movies had time to get into before AI sort of took off. Okay, this is another one that has like the feel of Hellfest or the feel of I Know What You Did Last Summer, the feel of like a late 90s slasher type movie. I love the concept here. I love that we're taking once again a place that's meant to be a fake scary place and we're making real scary things happen in it. Because that means the tension can sort of never let up for us because the space was designed for those scares to happen around every corner and to keep the people experiencing it tense the whole time. So we get a movie that keeps the tension up and keeps unexpected things happening. There was an actual little jump scare for me in this one with the spider. Hey, I guess maybe arachnophobia primed me for this. I don't know. Um, I think I buy into Katie Stevens, her character's story fairly well. I think she's a functional protagonist. This movie is sort of the only foray I'll have into the creepy clown world, and it's not really a foray into that on this list. But if you want creepy clown movies, I had a couple that I did deep dives for last EEKtober. I did Terrifier and I did Stitches. So those are the ones that I most recommend. But this one has an element of that as well. Okay, I've seen the reviews. Nobody liked this movie. Nobody. But I like this movie kinda. I like it a little. I do. I'll tell you what, I've seen it probably two or three times now. So I think I like this movie. I know nobody else did. Unless you do, then tell me. I'd love to know if there's anybody out there who actually enjoys this film. I'm going to defend it a little bit here. I'm also going to criticize it a little bit, but first of all, I like the setting. I like the house that they put this movie in. I think it's really cool that they have this like stone wall basement or cellar. That's just a cool look and adds a certain level of creepiness to the house. I like Dylan Minnette. He's this is probably peak 13 Reasons Why. He was in a lot of stuff before this. He was a kid actor. I would prefer if the mom would have had a little more savvy, but this would not be the first movie where kids know more than the parents. And I think that's often the point of those movies. Um, Three cheers to Dylan Minnette for somehow surviving the line of exposition or the lines of exposition that they gave him. This was a writing fail. They actually made him say something like, open houses are crazy because people come in and you don't know who that. He literally, like early in the movie, has to explain the point of the movie. We could have lifted that and just been done with it. Like we get it. We get the point of the movie. We get it. We understand. Um, he must have seen that in the script and been like, okay, I'll figure it out. He gets through it real quick, and then he adds some life to the lines after it, and off we go. Um, but I will say, here's my main defense of this movie. Check out the credits at the end of this thing. They're short. They're so short that I said, what was the budget for this film? It was $100,000. In 2018, you can't do anything for $100,000. You can't do anything. It's crazy to me that they could make any film on 100K. Like, I don't even understand it. So, if you have complaints about the film, just know nobody got paid to do this movie. This was a side project probably for everybody. Um, I think they did a downright respectable job with this movie, especially given the probably monumental constraints that they had with it. So, I don't know. I like it. I've seen it before. I'll see it again probably. And I welcome anybody who likes this film to let me know. Okay, you know that I love a good home invasion film. You know that I love a good slasher film. You know that I love a good strong female protagonist film. You know I'm going to love this film. One of the things that works for me about home invasion movies is the idea that it's so random. Like this could be anywhere. This could happen to anybody. And the perpetrator, the villain automatically has the upper hand because they were prepared for this and whoever's on the receiving end wasn't. And most of us, even those of us who've watched a lot of horror films, probably are not going to fare very well in these situations. So it's really cool to see a movie where the premise is that, yeah, that's happening, except the protagonist actually has survival skills. She is capable of defending herself and knowing how to get creatively out of a situation if she needs to. And she is going to cause a world of hurt to whoever's coming at her. And so it's interesting to see a movie where the setup is that, and it makes it hard to say who the underdog actually is in this movie, which I think is a cool thing to see play out. I really like this movie. I like it so much. This is another movie that I've done a deep dive for. If you are interested in this movie, if you want to check it out, watch it first and then check out my deep dive. And I'll share all the details. Here, I'm going to keep it as spoiler free as I can, and just tell you kind of what you know from the setup of the movie. I do enjoy the premise. So we get Josh Stewart, who plays Arkin, who's a bad guy breaking into a home, but he encounters in that process a way worse bad guy breaking into a home. And to see that play out is really cool because it sets up a battle of wits. It sets up a battle of like really capable bad guys. And it's just a nuance that I haven't really seen in a horror film. I mean, we've seen people like fight back like a Home Alone kind of thing, but this is a different premise altogether, and I'm invested in it. I love the disruptive soundtrack of it. Also, okay, I guess this movie would fall into torture. It's a bit of a lighter movie than some of the other torture cat. Like this doesn't feel like grotesque to me, for example, or like Hostel. This feels like um it's in service of a plot that's happening already. So the only complaint that I have with this film is the timeline of it. Doesn't really make sense. That's something that I'm going to dive into more in the deep dive. But I don't know, it's a good one to check out. I'm not sure that it's a very well-known film, but hopefully it will continue to get more fans over the years. It's a Thanksgiving horror film. This is one of my favorites. I love home invasion. I love survival movies. This is a really good one that almost nobody knows about. So, time to discover it, people, if you haven't already. I have done a deep dive on this movie, so be sure to check out that deep dive. Check out the movie, then check out the deep dive video that I have done from EEKtober previously. So this one, again, it's a Thanksgiving film. You don't get a whole lot of those. It has a really capable protagonist and antagonist, played very well by Haley Bennett and Ashley Greene, who keep me invested and captivated in this movie the whole time. It feels kind of like everybody's on home turf here, which I think ratchets up the tension as well. Um, Maybe the scariest part of this film is the idea of what happens after the film's done, because it feels like the film is the beginning, and now it releases us into the world and says, okay, what happens next? And that doesn't feel like a good thing. So I like that this movie becomes more of a jumping off point, but also the movie itself is good. It's my second favorite horror movie. This is a horror comedy. It's another one that I've done a deep dive on, so check out that deep dive because I had a lot to say about this film, but I'll sum it up here and just say, first of all, very well directed. This is directed by Tyler Gillette and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, who have gone on to do even more things since. Um, this is a movie that's set in a mansion that has cool features to it and hidden nooks and crannies, and I love any movie that lets me explore a mansion that's cool like that. It also has an iconic female protagonist. The look of her is iconic. Samara Weaving standing there in a wedding dress is an unforgettable image that you only can attach to this movie. And she's an operatic screamer. I've never heard anybody scream like Samara Weaving, so just she's so good at the helm of this movie. But actually, everybody, top to bottom, the whole cast, so good. A lot of like sort of I don't know, stunt casting. A lot of compelling casting choices. We get like Adam Brody, Andy McDowell. We get Mark O'Brien, who I know from *Halt and Catch Fire*. I got to do a really fun interview with him about that, and he's so invested in his work, and I'm a big fan. And this movie also has just the right balance of comedy for me. A scene like Fitch looking up how to use your crossbow, just I think about it regularly. So I think this is a very doable movie, even if you aren't into scary movies. It's just a fun watch, a lot of action, and I hope you enjoy it. This is my favorite horror film. Home Invasion, of course, I'm gonna love it. And even I've seen so many home invasion films that even those don't always build up enough tension for me. But I think what works so well about this film is that the protagonist that we are following is a smart woman character and she's deaf. And that puts her at the beginning at a disadvantage. She doesn't even know there's a problem until it's very clear there's a problem. So for me, that made me feel more protective of this character and made me feel more invested in the movie in a way that helped a lot for me and had a good outcome in terms of like how I felt about the movie the whole time. There is criticism about having cast an actress who is not deaf to play the role of the deaf lead. But what you need to understand about this is one of Mike Flanagan's early films. And Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel are married now, and they were together then, and it was early in both of their careers, and she was always going to be the lead of this film. So I think they've taken the note about representation since then, but what would have happened is they would have made a film with somebody who wasn't deaf, like about somebody who wasn't deaf. So this was the movie we were getting. I will say that as somebody who doesn't know very much about that lived experience, this movie gave me a lot to think about in terms of how you would operate in the world, how you would operate in this situation, and how you would operate in the world at large. So maybe that is a success to some degree for the film. But there is a criticism there that should be recognized. But for me, it's a smart protagonist. It's a really cool house that, it's a modest house that seems reasonable for her to live in, but it also has a lot of interesting features that can be used in different scenes. And so that keeps the movie moving and it keeps it dynamic. And I don't know if a lot of people know about this one. But it's one really worth exploring. And Mike Flanagan has gone on to do some incredible things and get some huge opportunities. So I did a whole deep dive on this movie. I would love for you to check that out. And my goodness, that's 100 films. That's the list. This was not technically in order of like least to most favorite, although I ended with ones that were most favorite for me. A lot of the ones in the first like two-thirds were films that I had never watched before or hadn't watched in a long time. So I was sort of rolling the dice and seeing what would strike me. But those are my quick thoughts about 100 films, 100 horror movies for Eektober. And I would love to know what you think about them. What movies have you seen that you liked or that you didn't like? What do you agree with or disagree with here? I'd love your takes, hot takes, cold takes, whatever takes you've got. And if you have any spoilers in there, put the spoiler, put the movie name, put the word spoiler, put the movie name, and then some line breaks, and then put what you have to say so that you don't spoil it for people. Hopefully, people get a chance to discover some movies through this list that they didn't know about before, that they maybe want to try out or rewatch if they haven't seen it in a while. This, I can't imagine I will ever beat this record or even try. This was a perfect storm of things that allowed for me to watch 100 movies in Inktober. But I come away feeling more knowledgeable about a subject that a lot of people talk to me about because they think I know a lot about horror movies. And so this makes me feel like there are a lot more movies where they can be like, well, have you seen this one? And I can be more often, I can say yes to that. But I had some really cool discoveries along the way. There are some films here that I loved that I had never seen before. There are some ones that are one-time watches that I will not be seeing again. And what an adventure this has been. This is a genre that has so much to give. And I hope this list gives you so much joy. So I hope to hear from you about any of these movies that you watched yourself and go out there, everybody, and take the donut. Get spooky, get donuts. Bye.